Shelby Gt350, and I'm gonna be answering the question, is the Shelby Gt350 a reliable car? Because I often get this question so many times. There's like a dog in the middle of the street. So the Gt350 is a very special motor, no doubt about it. It's super unique. So now the problem with that is nice little heel toe downshift right there. People don't really know that it's a racing motor and the way that they're supposed to treat the vehicle because it's a racing motor. And since this car is a racing motor, you have to do simple things with all cars, but especially with this car, like warm it up to 180 degrees before you actually rip on it. Make sure the transmission's warm, and the engine especially, like if you don't heat it up fully and you start really getting on it, this car is not at all gonna like it. There's a noticeable difference between this car when it is warmed up and when it's cold. This car drives, if I'm being quite honest, it's so much harder to drive when it's cold. This car right here does not really see many of these easygoing highway miles. It's mostly always hard miles that I'm putting on the vehicle, revving it all the way out to the last 250 RPMs. Like, I think that as long as it's warmed up, it's such an amazing motor. Now, yes, the Gen 2 motor, they have the Gen 1 and Gen 2 motor. I have a different video on the differences between it, but overall, the Gen 2 is quite a bit stronger motor than the Gen 1. And that's why I would recommend warranty if you're buying one. I would recommend getting a warranty because it is regular, since it is a racing motor, to consume a quart per 500 miles. But some people are not happy with it and get an engine replacement even though that's the regular consumption. Or some people consume like 6 quarts, 5 quarts, 3 quarts per 500 miles, just an absurd amount, where those engines actually have an issue. It's not so common hearing about that issue with the vehicle of someone really consuming that much oil in their vehicle, and it's more common to just hear about people trying to get that Gen 2 motor. These cars, I do think as long as you treat them right, it's going to be good back to you, and if you have that warranty, there's nothing really to get worried about, to be worried about. If you have the Gen 2 and you put a few thousand miles on it, everything feels regular, I think these cars are very good. I think there's many signs as the car is getting older and leading up to the higher mileage motors. I think there's many signs that you'll encounter on the way that are showing that you might not have a good motor. For example, I always check my dipstick religiously every 500 miles just to see if I'm consuming more than I need to be, because then I'll know if I'm consuming too much oil. Then I can go to the dealer, get my Gen 2 after running a consumption test, which is super easy, by the way, and it'll probably take them like 3 weeks, hopefully, to get it all done. Aside from the motor being the one scary part, the car is pretty reliable. There's no transmission issues like the Mustang GTs with its MT82 transmission. That's absolute just garbage. Sometimes another common issue is the oil filter will spin off while you're driving it, and that's mostly because the people who bring it into dealerships, the technicians really don't know how much to torque down the oil filter to, even though it's specifically supposed to be torqued down to a certain amount of foot-pounds. Some people don't do that, and that can just spin off the filter, screw up the motor, shoot oil everywhere. And there's also the people who don't realize their car's consumed a decent amount of oil in the last 1,000 miles and haven't checked their dipstick, and they end up running their car low on oil. And then when you run your car dry on oil like that, it really does not like it. And in fact, once it starts to get lower on oil, you can kind of smell the engine getting a little bit more smellier, if that makes any sense to you guys. I've noticed it in my car because I'm guilty of it. I have ran it kind of low on oil. It still had enough in it, but I ran it low. And if I ignored those signs and I just thought it was completely normal and I wasn't like a super gearhead, I really could have screwed up this vehicle. This thing is just meant to be driven hard. It's a track car. Some people who don't beat on it, I could see you having some issues down the road. If you're not always beating on the car, it sounds stupid, but if you don't rev out your car and then one day you do, the car's gonna be like, what the heck? Why am I being revved out fully and stuff? Why is it? RPM. But yeah, if you're not regularly driving your car hard, when you do decide to drive it hard and take it to the track, it's not gonna like it, if I'm being completely honest. It's a racing motor. Racing motors are meant to be driven. They're meant to be taken care of. Change the oil in it, take good care of it, change it every 6 months or 5,000 miles. Just take good care of the car and you'll be perfectly fine. Have a warranty. If you have the Gen 2, I honestly firmly think you're fine. If you have the Gen 1, I also think you're fine. You pay attention to the signs of your motor potentially being bad, even though I think it is a pretty slim case scenario. But regardless, once these things do get on the higher mileage spectrum, I'm only at 12,000. They will give you a little bit of issues once you get really high miles, like towards 60, 70, 80, north of that. It will give you some issues here and there because it's a racing motor, and that's just the fact of it. The car is really special, but there are pros and cons to everything. So I personally do think the Shelby Gt350 is reliable if you treat the car right. If you don't treat the car right, then man, it might be kind of sketchy. So treat your car right. If you want a Shelby, definitely buy one because these things are so much fun. Like I have so much fun in this thing. Absolutely love it. It's been more than a year now with it, and like, who could not enjoy this car? Like, it sounds so fantastic. Like, listen to this. Especially because it's a manual, it's so much more fun having your manual gearbox, so you can like do so many different things. Heel toe, rev match, downshift, all these different techniques. Woo! Love this car. Subscribe to the channel. I'm always hooning the hell out of this GT350. So subscribe, like, comment, all that good stuff. I'll see all you guys in the next one. Peace.
You see a carku, call the cops, boy. AK all day, body start to drop, boy. Bamba jinya beaten, sari diyan streetan. They're trying to lock us up, but we ain't gonna stop, boy. They're trying to lock us up, but we ain't gonna stop, boy. They're trying to lock us up, but we ain't gonna stop.